Tell me about how that relates to your preoccupation. You talked about competition or collaboration. Because obviously if you're thinking about place geographically, and I think you can perhaps think about place in a different way, but if you think about geographical place, then the competition collaboration within an area has to be focused, isn't it, on what the purpose of each individual provider is?
I think that's right. I think collaboration as a proposition benefits from two particular. There may be more, and I'm kind of still thinking this through. One, it benefits from reciprocity and a sense of fairness. That if you feel what you do is reflected in the person you're dealing with, and you are treated fairly, or people act in a fair manner, then there's more likely to grow trust between those parties, and they're more likely, therefore, to work in a way that's complementary and to the greater good. So this idea of a trust reciprocity is important. But I also think the idea of differentiation is important. If you compete in a Darwinian way or Hobbesian way, you compete on everything at all times in all ways, it's very hard to see how collaboration can grow from that circumstance. What I'm still wrestling with in my own mind is whether or not you can have that kind of differentiation without top-down direction within a system. That differentiation can arise bottom-up. There's a very interesting, almost four-nation experiment going on now between the four nations in the United Kingdom. In Scotland, there is a more differentiated system with some significant benefits. Level 4, 5 technical and professional education is better sustained in Scotland, has been for many years, because it's not typically delivered in universities, and it's seen as a core area for colleges. Colleges in Scotland don't deliver A-levels or Highers equivalent in all but a few circumstances. So they're seen as being within an ecosystem, particular type of role. Equally in Wales, hitherto, I'm reticent here to make too large a generalisation. Apprenticeships are more often delivered by independent training providers than they are by colleges. So the competitive landscapes.
And you seem to be saying that what is preferable is specialisation. Because what you have in Wales and Scotland is much more distinct specialisation rather than this adaptive, providers doing a lot of different things.
And even if you have generalisation, in Northern Ireland, for instance, it's geographical generalisation directed into groups, rather than, as we have in England, moved through an area-based review process, where people have almost picked sides, rather than being directed to do this. So I think that's right, but I'm arguing for more specialisation. My reticence is my belief, and I've kind of begun to use the term post-market circumstances, is how...
What do you mean by that?
Well, by that I mean, if you want to oversimplify this, in the post-war settlement period, perhaps up to the 1980s, there were still the remnants of a centrally led, planned economy. And then we went through the Big Bang and through the evolution of a market-led economy with free market and market thinking. I mean, I hate the term, but people tend to use it a lot. Neoliberal thinking was predominant. So a market-led. So we went from a plan-led to a market-led. And this is a false, it was a continuum. It was never quite as stark as that. But I do feel we're moving into what I would call a post-market situation, where we have the remnants of the market, but accepting the market can't fix everything. The market can't be the invisible guiding hand in quite the way.
Competition can't fix everything.
So therefore we talk about collaboration. But do we need to go all the way back to a centrally led, planned and directed solution here? Or is on that continuum between plan-led systems and market-led semi-anarchy, where do we rest this again? You could swing all the way between the pendulum, or said, perhaps we're moving to something new, which is, I'm getting pretentious now, I'm pretending to be an academic. In the dialectic, you go from the thesis to the antithesis, and you move on. So it's that sort of movement forward to a post-market situation. And I'm interested to reflect on the fact whether or not in the modern economy, which is extraordinarily fast-moving, and even at the local level, much more complex than it was in the early part of the 20th century and through the mid-20th century, whether or not centrally led approaches can work in these circumstances. It seems to me there will always be just behind where the problem is. And that, if that comes down to a college perspective, trying to direct precisely what specialism there is from the top down, or particularly what role you will do, or what you will do, will always seem to me cursed to be just wrong, rather than seeking to be just right. So I think what I'm searching towards is whether or not we can combine a significant level of autonomy and responsiveness, which I think is important in modern economic circumstances, with a way in which specialisms, specializations, collaboration, differentiation can arise, rather than being in detail directed top down. Because I think if you direct it top down, you're going to lose some of that responsiveness, flexibility, and if you like, the adaptive layer, become not the adaptive layer. So that's one thing. And I think in that regard, this is why I'm so interested in this thing about boards of colleges and leaders within colleges, and also from independent training providers and others, thinking through what their distinctive purpose is, thinking in a disciplined way, it's not altruistic, I don't think, about an enlightened self-interest about who we serve, where we're serving, and what is the best contribution we're able to make. That then I think gives you a sustainable business, and one is there for the long term, with a sense of direction and a sense of self